This is Thomas with ForReel Movie News and Reviews, and I am currently in North Bend, Washington, talking with the director of Potato Dreams of America, Wes Hurley. His film debuted at South by Southwest earlier this year and is now featured at North Bend Film Festival, where I am able to cover it. So Wes, again, thank you so much for taking the time out for this. I'm very honored to be able to talk with you about your film.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Potato Dreams of America is in many ways kind of semi-autobiographical. Is that how you would describe it?
I would describe it as 99.999% autobiographical. Yeah, it's very, very faithful to my childhood and early years. So
very cool. In watching it, it's such an entertaining film. There's some comedy involved. You have Jonathan Bennett as Jesus Christ. Like, I remember getting to that point where he shows up, and I'm like, wait, I know that actor, and he's doing amazing as Jesus. So,
funny Jesus, yeah.
So there's some comedy, there's drama, there's struggles that the main character has here. Tell us a little bit about the film. I guess it might be a good place to start. Tell us about the film and maybe even how you started on directing it.
Yeah. So Potato Dreams of America is very much my story of my mom and I. It's about me growing up gay in the USSR in the late 80s and early 90s, right around the time of Soviet Union collapsing, disintegrating, and then falling in love with American films. And then my mom basically became a mail-order bride, and we moved to Seattle, Washington in the late 90s. And then there's a lot of surprises that come after that. So it's a film that I wrote about 8 years ago. It's been, like for a lot of independent films, a struggle to get it made in terms of raising money and figuring out what budget it's going to be possible to make it for. Midway through that process, I was really lucky. I got a small grant from For Culture, that's a Seattle-based nonprofit, to make a short film. And so I ended up making a short documentary called Little Potato and a short VR piece, which showed at South by and got a lot of exposure and really helped me sort of leverage that success to make the feature, which is not, that was never my intention. I would have loved to just make the feature right away, but I'm glad I ended up making a short that people really liked and it resonated with a lot of people. And it's a doc. I think it's like a good companion piece for the feature. It's only 13 minutes, but it kind of, I think a lot of people see in the feature, they wonder how much of it is, biographical versus how much of it is fictional. And if you see the short, you'll see it's all autobiographical.
That's actually really fascinating that this movie is so autobiographical. I actually was going to ask kind of what were the challenges I guess I still will ask, what are the challenges in adapting, your full life story into this one movie? But with it being so faithful to what your story is, I guess that makes me it makes me appreciate the movie even more, firstly, but it also, makes me wonder, more about your personal experience, really. Like, I almost want to just do this interview on your life. But tell me about the challenges in adapting your story and kind of the span of time that this movie covers into a movie.
Yeah, in terms of writing, the main challenge, and I think that's probably something everybody adapting real life, whether it's their own story or not, runs into, is condensing, because there's just so much. And when it's real life, everything seems authentic and important because it's true. So it's like it's harder to sort of gauge what's important, what to include, what not to include. So that process of elimination and condensing characters, like I didn't make up any characters for the film, but I had to condense. Like I had several grandmas in my life. I made one grandma. Things like that, where you just have to sort of create amalgamations of people in your life and condense events. I think that's the biggest creative challenge of doing that kind of thing. But then actually filming it, we had a very small budget. So filming a period film that's half set, it's a period film all the way because it's set in the 90s Seattle, which doesn't exist anymore. Seattle doesn't look the same way anymore. And then half of it is, 80s Soviet Union, which I would never go back to. But even if I did, it wouldn't look the same anymore either. And on a small budget, it's really hard to kind of create that world. So I wanted to harken back to like 80s, 90s, like new queer cinema that I appreciated, like, Todd Haynes and Derek Jarman, who told really ambitious stories on small budgets and kind of used, magical realism and theatricality and embracing low budget and sort of, telling the audience you have to suspend your disbelief. It's kind of like when you go into theater and you're experiencing the story. It's not expecting you to see it as a supernaturalistic experience, which is rare in film. So people either get it or they don't get it. It's interesting to see, how people react. But yeah, money was definitely a challenge, but it's probably is for everybody making the movie, right?
I'm getting better at not asking, what was the biggest challenge of making the film? The answer is usually budget. But, I think that that's a very respectable answer. And it's, first of all, I'm happy that Jesus Christ is an actual character in your life. And that was a very fun component of the film. But it makes sense that you condensed and you kind of worked around, the reality of things and made it work for what this film was. So that's incredible. I'm interested in what the response has been. Like I mentioned, it debuted at South by Southwest, which is amazing. How have people been responding to the film?
Well, it's, we got really good reviews for the most part, so that was nice. In terms of physical screenings, we just started having those, so it's hard for me. I've only been to one physical screening so far. That was in Provincetown. It was really great. John Waters was first in line to see the movie. He came up to us afterwards and praised it, and so I just thought I was gonna die of happiness in that moment. But I'm really excited about this screening in North Bend. This is my only second screening with an audience, so yeah, I would say it's still very early in the beginning, and I'm excited to see how the people will react. Because, digital screenings, while it's a huge honor, South by and Seattle International Film Festival and those festivals, I'm glad they did at least the virtual festival, but it's not the same. It's not like I didn't get to have any kind of interaction with the audience.
Right, and that's the difficult thing, and obviously the pandemic is going to come up because this is actually my very first interview post-pandemic, so thank you for that honor as well. But obviously the pandemic affected so much of normal life and how we do things, including filmmaking and going to watch a film. I was curious how, because I'm not sure when this was filmed, if it was before the pandemic, but how did the pandemic affect either the production or the post-production or the release of this movie?
Yeah, in terms of production, we were incredibly lucky in a way that just really scares me when I think about it, because we stopped filming a week before Seattle shut down. So we were so lucky. We got done, and then it actually, in a weird way, being isolated is really conducive to editing, and I edited the film myself, so it was very helpful. So I was very lucky. On post-production, the same. It was kind of, I was working with my composers remotely, with consulting editor remotely, so that was all good. The release is, of course, like I said, it's I was thrilled to be at South by and all the other festivals we got into, but it's it's not the same when it's not a physical festival, so it's definitely sad, because I have to say I was hopeful. When was it? In May, I guess, May. I remember I was editing the film, and I was hopeful that by the time we would be premiering next year, it would already be back to normal, and it wasn't. So that was tough. I mean, you can't complain because it's, everybody is affected by it in horrible ways. And I think about my friends in theater who are totally lost their livelihood and their projects got completely destroyed by this. But at least with film, you have something, and it kind of can sit on the shelf and wait, and eventually gets, a release or something. But yeah, now things are opening up. Well, we have a lot more screenings coming up that are going to be physical, so I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. I am interested because I know that this is a very personal movie for you. It's very biographical, and this is kind of your life story. But I'm interested in who you would recommend this movie to. Like, who do you think should watch Potato Dreams of America?
It's hard to tell. I would hope that it's a film that most people can resonate with. It can resonate with most people. Because it has so many different themes that are, either universal or just relevant to Americans right now in general, whether it's immigration, things like that, but also like a mother's love and a parent's love, and how unconditional it can be and how powerful it can be, and the ties that we make, with our real family or found family. And the power of cinema. So I think it has a lot of universal themes, but I think the style of it is definitely for people who are open to things that are quirky and different, because it's definitely not your standard Hollywood coming of age story or comedy. It's very unusual the way it's structured. It's very unusual. The way it's shot is very unusual. So I would say if people who like interesting art house kind of films, that would be our base audience. And then, of course, I would hope that it expands beyond that.
I hope so as well. So I'm curious what it means to you, because this movie has a lot of implications, again, with you personally, but there is a lot that can resonate with people who have coming out experiences, either coming out as gay or even as transgender. That comes up in the film as well. And so I want to know what does it mean for you, firstly, to have the film here at North Bend Film Festival, but also for it to be going out into the world at this point in our history?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I wanted to make the film in the first place, it's sort of an ode to my mom and how amazing and supportive and unconditionally loving she is. And so when I made the short, I've gotten so many gay people just crying and being like, your mom really touched me, and like, your mom is amazing. I wish I had a mom like you, or I have a mom like yours, so I think that's sort of a point of reference for a lot of LGBT folks, where we've all had one kind of experience or another coming out. And in this story and in this instance, it's a very positive, very hopeful take on that. So I think it's important in this point in history where I think we're having kind of a rough few years to have something really positive and something really hopeful and inspiring, and hopefully something that just inspires people to be better and to expect better of their loved ones as well.
Absolutely. I know you have to get to your screening of Potato Dreams of America. I guess my last question I want to know is, what was the first movie you saw in theaters when restrictions lifted, or when you were able to go back to a theater?
Oh my gosh. I remember very well what I saw last in theaters, which was A Portrait of a Woman on Fire, which I loved so much.
It is a wonderful film.
I was so happy to see it on the big screen right before, like literally before. Before everything shut down. I'm trying to think for theatrical. I feel like my film was the first one that I saw in Provincetown. Yeah, because
to have been able to have seen it in theaters already. That's great.
But you know what? Not to make it about myself, Swan Song, which is another film that's going around both mainstream festival and LGBT festival circuit, is one that I really highly recommend, and I saw it at Provincetown as well, and it played at South by as well. It's such a beautiful, touching, timely film, I think, and really spoke to me. Made me cry, like ugly cry, like I haven't cried in a really long time.
It is a very heartfelt film, and actually opened in North Bend. So,
nice.
yeah. So I'm happy that film's making its rounds. We were actually, one of my writers was able to write about it after it debuted at South by, and that was a really good movie to do a shout out to. So. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having this conversation with me, Wes, and I look forward to whatever other projects you have coming up, and I wish the best of luck to Potato Dreams of America.
Thank you.